Happy MLB Draft Day, and hello and welcome to the third edition of the Crushcast. I'm Jesse Morrison alongside head coach Bill McConnell and Steve Durr. Today we are joined by Dave Murphy, a star shortstop for the Crush in 2016. How's everyone doing today?
Thumbs up.
Everything.
Oh, my apologies. Doing great. Good to be back.
Awesome. So, Dave, I just wanted to start off with a question for you. So 2016, just what was that experience like playing in Cortland for the Crush?
Well, first of all, it was awesome. We came off of a very good season at UMass. We had a long road in the Super Regionals in Pennsylvania. Ended up losing. I think I had 3 days to rush back home on Cape Cod and pack my bags and head up to New York. And it was I didn't know what to expect heading up there, other than talking to Bill. Seemed like an awesome guy. Obviously, has an amazing resume with everything and baseball wise, and of course aside from that. But then you know what, like, I still talk about it to this day. That was the best summer of my life. I had some of the best baseball memories and off the field memories as well. It's a summer I'll never forget.
And how much was Bill important to that summer and just his coaching?
Well, they say a team only goes as far as the leader wants to lead them. So, I think Bill he just has that attribute to him. He's a calm and confident leader. He has something about him that, it draws guys in, and we just wanted to, keep the ball rolling. We had such a good year, and, I wouldn't have preferred to play anywhere else that summer. I think he was the most important role on our team, to be honest with you.
What's interesting about Murph is a little background on him. You came from a junior college, All-American shortstop. And what was the name of that school, Murph?
Massasoit Community College.
Okay. A Division I prospect, and ended up choosing to go to UMass Boston, which in the short run, an outstanding career you had there with Coach Eigerbrout. The records you've left there, the hitting, the fielding, you transitioned and gave up shortstop your senior year for another and played second base and set a standard in Gold Glove at second base that year. You can't say enough. And in 2016, that team was the best team we've ever had since we started in 2014 and won the Eastern Division and then went into the playoffs there. But I had so much fun. My most fun moment of all was pitching BP at the All-Star game to you and a couple other guys out there. That was unbelievably fun. So, but Murph, it's good to see you, man. Part of the family.
As always, Bill. It's awesome to see you guys too.
I wanted to go off what Bill just said about family. How much of that family impact really helped you at that time during your time, with the Cortland Crush?
Oh, it was huge. I mean, living in the Cortland suites and everything with all the guys, it takes a lot of maturity, being, 21-year-old kids in a upstate New York with nothing to do but play baseball. And, I think Bill had a great, he mediated us in a perfect way where it was easy to stay focused. It was easy to want to show up to the ballpark. He took care of us with everything outside of baseball. And, him and his wife were great. They let us over to the house plenty of times to, get our minds off the game and get away from the suites and whatnot. So it for sure felt like a family. I thought it was, I'll say it, for as long as I live, that was probably the most memorable summer of my life. So it was an awesome, awesome time.
And playing in that All-Star game, and then you made All-League. How cool is it getting both of those honors?
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, I know it sounds cliche, but I don't really, all that stuff is just extra, the extra stuff, to get to those points, it's a day-to-day thing. And obviously you can't do it without your teammates around you. But you're right, all that stuff adds up together, and it, adds up to a successful season. And yeah, that was a great year. I always felt great. I was healthy. I was, I was happy. Life was good. So it was a great.
There were days we'd come back from a road trip, and I'd be going about 11 o'clock in the morning. I'd get a text with a photo from him and Derek Martin fishing, and I didn't have to lead him to water. Derek, of course, being from Florida, I figured he'd be the one with the big truck he had for pulling a boat. But these guys found Central New York fishing all the holes. So what was your favorite hole and experience fishing up here that summer, Murph?
Oh, so I remember specifically, it's probably a good thing I waited to tell you about this story. So in the town of Preble, which is that north of Cortland or?
Yeah, Preble.
Preble, yep. So we used to, on our away games, would drive by this, the off ramp into Preble, and on the right side would drive by a big garlic farm, a whole farm with cows and you name it, giant. And behind the farm was this little pond that had this old piece of, it looked like maybe a little house foundation or something that I would every time we drove by it, I would always look over there and say, get on my Google Maps and try to figure out how we could get my car or Derek's car back there. And one day, I think we had a night game that night in Cortland. So, most of us were sleeping in. Me, Josh, and Diesel hopped in my CRV, got on Google Maps, and ended up finding they had a big wheat field. So the wheat was growing above the roof of the car we were in. And we found this little off the beaten path, old truck tires that went through the wheat that you could go right through it. And so I had a little moonroof on the car, and Josh Lopez was sitting up there looking down, making sure that there was no rocks underneath that wheat that we were driving through. We ended up going about a mile through it, and it led us perfectly out to the pond. And, it was early in the morning. I mean, it's probably right around sunrise. And we finally got out there. We got a car full of fishing gear and, listen to some good country music, watching the sunrise. And we get out there. And I remember specifically Josh Lopez and I both spotted this. We're having a great time. We're catching hundreds of fish. No one fishes here at all. These fish are completely unpressured. They don't know the difference between a lure or the real thing. So they'll just eat whenever they want. And Josh and I are sitting there on the beach by this little house foundation. And we see this giant shadow swimming by, and he actually saw it and pointed it out to me. And, you only have a split second to make the perfect cast to get his attention. And, even then he still might not go for the lure. When a fish gets that big, they're pretty smart. And sure as hell, I casted my bait right in there, and that it was about a 6.5 pound largemouth. For upstate New York, that's going to be hung on most people's trophy rooms. And I just remember Josh was just starting out fishing. I just remember I've never seen someone smile so big in his life. We were both jumping up and down this giant, almost 7 pound largemouth in upstate New York. And we took a couple photos and we let her swim away.
Oh man, so that thing might still be there and getting bigger.
Yep, let her grow.
Well, I wanted to go back to the baseball thing again, and then I'll get into some more fishing questions. But just you played at a junior college. What was that like? I've heard lots of stories about the junior college lifestyle.
Oh yeah, so I was fortunate enough to live within an hour of the school. That's partially the reason why I went there. So it was, it's not your typical college baseball setup. It was definitely, older buildings. You get a very diverse crowd there. So it definitely taught me you gotta work with what you got. We didn't have our own weight room. Our field didn't have a maintenance crew. We didn't have those things. We had a 2-coach staff who were unbelievable. They were some of the best coaches I've ever had. Coach Tom Frizzell, he's a legend, and Jeff McDermott, who was also an amazing guy. And it was very competitive. It was, it's not as cookie cutter as some of the college leagues. You'll see more ejections, you'll see more fights. Um, So it's definitely, you could say it's a little bit tougher baseball. The talent level might not be as high as, your NCAA schools, but no, I think it was the necessary step for me to kind of mature as a player and a person, to get used to putting in, 50-hour baseball weeks mixed with school and whatnot. And maybe if you get lucky, you get one day off a week from the game. And that was definitely a key step to, furthering my career.
Do you have a favorite memory from your junior college career?
Yeah, so we used to go to our spring training in Vero Beach, which is a very famous baseball town. They call it Dodger Town. And that's where we spent our spring trainings, and it was really cool. You'd be around with 20 or 30 other junior college teams. Even some of the best ones, I want to say either Bryce Harper or one of the other big name guys from JUCO. Their college was living right across the little parking lot from us for a while. And so the atmosphere was like nothing you've ever seen. It was like full-time baseball only type deal. And I remember specifically, so we were there for, I think it was 10 or 8 days we were there, and we would play 16 games in 8 days. So you had a double header, and your first game would be in the morning. Most days you would have a practice between, because if you're from the Northeast like us, we didn't see a baseball field until we got down to Florida. So we had a lot of polishing up to do. And I remember being extremely, extremely tired. And one of my best friends to this day, his name's Mike. I remember my parents came down and they would visit us and watch a couple games. And I remember it was on our last day on the trip, and we were so dog tired we couldn't even stand up straight. And we had 2 games ahead of us. And I remember going to bed the night before, and we're all looking on the weather app, right? We wanted to see when's this rainstorm coming, because we heard about it. And I remember we woke up. It looked a little stormy out, but we were definitely getting the first game in. We got our first game in, and I remember we were scheduled to have our team photos in between the games, right? And I want to say that was at about noon. And I remember it started pouring rain as we were taking our photos. We all run back to the rooms. Coach tells us he's gonna, call and text all the captains, whatever. I get a phone call about 20 minutes later. Game's off. If you have family members down, feel free to spend the rest of the day with them. Curfew's at 10. And so me and Mike and my parents went to the beach. A little bit further down, you know how Florida is. You drive a mile down the road and it's bright and sunny again. And we ended up going down to the beach and hanging out. Got to enjoy the summer or the Florida sun for a little while, and it was a perfect cap to the end of the trip. It doesn't affect our overall record. So it was a win-win for everyone. I got to put my feet on some ice and relax the rest of the trip.
It kind of reminds me of those youth baseball tournaments you do a little bit, where you play sometimes 3 to 4 games in a day, and you're just so tired, but you're at a really cool location, so it kind of makes up for it in that aspect.
Yes, definitely, very, very comparable. But of course, playing in the playoffs and competing against some unbelievable teams and whatnot with my guys was, couldn't count the memories. So.
And you ended up going to UMass Boston, smaller school. you had a lot of success there. What was your reasoning for going there? And then what was your favorite memory there as well?
Yeah, I mean, so that whole process, to be honest with you, was like a crash course for me. I don't know why. I had a really tough time getting recruited. By the schools that I at the time was very interested in going to when I was in junior college. So I was in touch with, I mean, probably a dozen different schools, the best competition, in New England. And for some reason, at the end of towards the middle of the summer, I didn't have any offers. I wasn't a scholarship baseball player. I was never the greatest student. I didn't have a 4.0 GPA to back up to get some money from the school itself. And a lot of roads came to a dead end. And I had a good friend from Massasoit, Luke Nagel, that was at UMass Boston. He loved it. He said it was an awesome place. The atmosphere was great. The baseball was right up to tier with the rest of New England's, best competition. So I remember Igerbrot reached out to me, middle of the summer and said, you know what, like if you want a place where you're going to have a good chance at, finishing up school and being on a great baseball program where we work hard and we play tough, like UMass Boston's for you. So just let me know what happens. And, before I knew it, it was about late July and I was committed to play at UMass. And to be honest with you, it was probably the best decision I ever made. So.
Well, one of the best decisions that ever came from UMass was Coach Igerbrot reaching out to us for you and your fellow teammates. So why don't you say a word about each of the other three guys that came with you?
Yeah, I mean, that was awesome. The UMass band of brothers. It was Josh Lopez, Anthony Searles, Steve Whitco, and myself. All awesome dudes. Try to stay in touch with them as much as I can still. Each one of them's doing great. I know Steve's got a awesome job in the city. I know Josh played a little pro baseball in Puerto Rico. I'm pretty sure you were sharing the middle of the infield with Javi Baez, his little brother, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. And Searlesy's doing good. I think he's living back in Connecticut. And I think everything's good, man. I haven't talked to Searlesy much, but I'm sure he's doing great. He's an awesome guy. Steve and Josh are likewise.
One of the unique events is when the Crush, we get together 2 or 3 days before the season starts. We practice, we do stuff, we come to our house for a big barbecue. And in rolls out in the country in a big field, this player, Steve Whitco, with a sport coat, tie, and shorts on and sneakers. I go, what am I in for this summer? And that was him. He kept the team loose, whether he was up or down, but what a first impression.
Oh yeah. He's one of a kind, I'll tell you that much.
So Murph, you've migrated, you always had a passion for fishing. Where are you now? You said you're on a journey to become a pro bass fisherman. It sounds like you're there. How long is this journey taken and where are you going in the future?
Yeah, so I mean, bass fishing has been a passion of mine since I was a little kid. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't always in the classroom or sometimes on the practice field thinking about being on the water. So once baseball's road ended for me, I had a pretty good idea that I wanted to gain some knowledge about bass fishing and learn a little more, try to meet some awesome people, and try to explore what that's like because it's very similar. There's professionally you're competing against the top anglers across the nation. I'm not there yet. I don't have my own boat, but it's one of those things. It's a very long road, and pro guys will tell you they probably went through their 20s scratching and clawing away at getting up to the top level of it. I've met some unbelievable people along the road in this short 2-year span. I spent 3 weeks down in Florida this past winter. fishing on Okeechobee in the Florida Everglades, trying to get a little better understanding about Florida. So maybe someday down the road, I can go down to Florida and fish a tournament confidently, and get a chance at a big time check, and be able to fund my entry fees and continue down the road. But until then, me and a couple of my friends here on Cape Cod, we share a bass boat. We've got a nice little brand new bass boat, and it was gifted to us from an awesome guy we know. He's totally in love with fishing like us. And, we have an Instagram account. It's called Dirty Water Fishing Co. We put up a lot of tips and, techniques. We share a lot of knowledge. We share our passion. We think it's something that, in everyone's DNA. No one doesn't enjoy reeling in a fish. So I think it'd be a cool thing to share this passion with everyone, and, be able to take your mind off of life, when times are as crazy as they are now. So.
Now, I've been fishing multiple times, especially my grandfather really loved fishing growing up. But everyone goes through that awful dry spell. We can't catch anything. Just no matter what day. What's the longest dry spell, I guess, you've had in your lifetime?
Well, I wouldn't say, for me, I'm pretty crazy. I'm pretty hardcore. So when it comes to,
I would say you're hardcore for driving through a wheat field in the dark.
Yeah, you're definitely not wrong about that one. But
and
no,
I did get a call, by the way.
Oh, geez, yeah.
I knew about it.
I wanted to stay on good terms. I didn't want to lose any playing time. For dry spells, though, I mean, I can tell you. So we have for bass fishing. I go, right now this time of year, after the fish spawn, they can be pretty tough to catch. I mean, I've gone a couple full day trips without catching. So they measure in tournaments. They measure you have a 5 bass limit. So your total best 5 fish, that total weight is what is gonna be measured at the end of the day. And I mean, so that's usually when I'm out practicing or fun fishing. I always try to use, my best 5 fish as an indicator of where, how the day's going. So this time of year, once, rolling into July, whatnot, they call it the post spawn. It seems like the fish they just vanish, and you just don't know where the heck they are. And then the patterns you think you're going to run for the day end up being completely useless, and you end up kind of spinning yourself out a little bit. And I've definitely gone a few trips without getting a bite, and it's sad to say, but it does happen to everyone. And I couldn't tell you the amount of times here on Cape Cod. I live about 5 minutes away from the Cape Cod Canal, where it's some of the best surf casting in the whole entire country for striped bass. I mean, you can catch 50-pound striped bass out of there. It's been done 100 times. And I couldn't tell you how many times I've struggled there. I've gone 10 trips in a row, putting 4 hours in before the sun's even up, or after the sun's already set, with a couple buddies, and not one of us has seen a striper. So I don't know how the guys on the canal do it. I'm working at it. Bear with me. Someday I'll hold my 50-pound striper, but till then, I'm still trying to figure out where those fish are in there. So we all have those struggles as fishermen.
And what really got you into fishing? Did you said, I think you got into it at a young age. Was it, watching the Bassmaster Classic? Was it, a family member getting you into it? What really got you into bass fishing?
Yeah, no, for sure. Growing up, we had a couple buddies in the neighborhood, and we used to always go down to this place called Morton Park. We could ride our bikes there, and we would go and we'd catch fish, get, chest deep in the water like maniacs, and try to get the longest cast out there. But throughout my whole life, I've always realized how much I've loved it. My cousin Sean, he's been a huge influence on me. He's now a giant sport fishing captain with a very successful career. And I look up to him, no doubt about it. He inspires me with, the hard work and dedication it takes, and being able to, you know, put those long hours fishing to gain the experience on the water when, there's not a paycheck coming in after you're fishing. So it's first gaining that experience and using that to your advantage later on down the road is something that, he taught me. But later on, I kind of fell in love with bass fishing. Once I started, I study it like you wouldn't believe. I mean, every time I hop in the shower, I put in something from a pro bass fisherman on my YouTube thing, and I try to take one piece of knowledge he says and try to remember it and get my wheels turning. And over time, every time you're on the water, you learn something new, and as many different conditions you can feel comfortable in on the water, the better of a day it's going to turn out to be. So I think, when I was probably 12, 13, 14, I fell in love with bass fishing, and ever since it's been an obsession of mine.
And I know you're in bass fishing, but I don't know if you saw on SportsCenter yesterday, but Michael Jordan and crew caught a 442-pound marlin. You ever come anywhere close to something like that?
I've seen big tunas. I've got a bunch of friends that catch big tunas. I've never personally caught myself a tuna. I've reeled in some sharks by accident. We're not looking for those ones. We don't want sharks. We want tunas when we're out there. But I did see the goat pull in a giant marlin, and I think I was looking on the tournament they were in, and I think they're going to end up landing in the money for the first time. That's a brand new boat they just got by Jarrett Bays, one of the most innovative boat designers out there. So I think MJ's got a good crew with him to land him in some money. I think I know he likes to gamble a little bit. So.
And he likes to win.
And he likes to win. It's a good recipe for sport fishing.
And you have some of your gear there, right?
Oh, yeah. I probably shouldn't show you all this junk, but this is about half of it.
What's your favorite, Murph, to go out today?
I mean, let's see. I'll let me show you. So I mean, I've got in my garage right now, and on our boat, we've got about 35 rods lined up. But so I'll show you some of the equipment I fish with. Is I like Shimano's equipment. So this is one of their more popular rods. It's a 7'5". It's got a good heavy action to it. And I pair it with a reel that's designed for speed. So it's a quick reel. You can reel that bait in pretty lightning quick. This bait right here is called a grass jig. They have jigs for all different types of cover you're fishing to just maximize your efficiency. Obviously, you can hear this one's got a little noise chamber in here, so if you shake it, you can hear it. It's good for fishing in that thick grass off of deep points and whatnot. It imitates a little sunfish, a crawfish, a little perch maybe. You have it. That's probably my go-to this time of year. It's good for covering a lot of water, and it's good for catching big ones. I mean, I've caught a lot of my best fish in the past couple of years on this right here. So that would be my go-to.
So obviously,
sorry. Go ahead.
Obviously there's PEDs in baseball, but is there like a version of a PED that's like a banned bait for fishing?
What do you mean? Like an information source?
No, just like just like is there a type of bait that they have that's considered like the fish are just gonna bite too much at that?
Well, it all depends. There are baits that are notorious for catching smaller fish. There are baits that are notorious for catching, bigger fish. Let me show you this one here. So, like, this will be something that, obviously, you're going to pay a little more money for something like this. So this here is an 8-foot rod for casting distance. But I mean, look at the size of the bait we're throwing for largemouth bass.
Wow.
And here's another one. This one's about 7 inches. This one's about 9.
That's about the size of my catch of the day.
I get that a lot from Coach Agabroat.
I feel like baseball and fishing can be very similar in the fact that you have that rod that you just want to go to a lot. And in baseball, you have that bat you're really comfortable with where you can get the best contact. Same thing with the glove. Do you see like those types of similarities?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, if I think about this all the time. Like if I was fishing in an enormous tournament with, at the highest level, they fish for as high as $300,000 for one tournament. If I put myself in that scenario, which, is the ultimate goal, I always think like, what would I, because if you see the pro bass fishermen, they got 15 rods on the deck sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I always try to wonder like, what would be my perfect number one confidence bait if the day wasn't working the way I wish it would. But I think it's very similar. Like for me, I've definitely got my favorite rod and reel. That's been my go-to for a lot of years now. And sometimes it's not even your nicest equipment. It could just be the one that you've had the longest, which is similar to a glove, I think. Yeah. And I think fishing and baseball, they have a lot of the same aspects. And I think, you can see that a lot of guys that played baseball, at higher levels, later on, they love to go bass fishing. I think, it's just a very similar type of deal. It's a long day. It's a lot of mental preparation, and it's a very similar sport, I think.
Can I throw one last question in?
Yeah.
So Murph, who is the most famous baseball player, New England or angler?
Let's see. The most famous baseball player, fisherman.
From New England and fisherman, angler.
I feel like this is an easy one that I'm not going to get. Hold on. Is it a baseball player?
Red Sox.
It's got to be.
Splendid Splinter.
What was it?
The Splendid Splinter.
Oh, man. You're making me
Ted
feel.
Williams.
Oh, Ted Williams. You're right. Ted Williams was famous fly fisherman.
He was all over Sports Illustrated for fishing and in the Keys in Florida. About Florida. When you talk about fishing Okeechobee, I'm going, man, you were fishing for gators, not bass there. So.
No, you're right. Ted Williams. I'm pretty sure Ted Williams still has the world record for the biggest tarpon on a fly rod.
Well, he was passionate about it. So, but well, listen, I got to air off here in a minute, so I'm going to say, Murph, once a crush, always a crush. You're always a member of this family, and I'm going to let these guys finish up here for a minute, because then we've got another guest coming on too. You might remember her. So
awesome. All right, Bill, it was awesome seeing you again. I'll be in touch.
I will get my gear ready. Okay.
All right. I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Murph, for doing this. That'll do it for our third edition of the Crushcast. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Crushball. We'll be posting a few more podcasts. We got some cool stuff up our sleeves. Not going to spoil anything yet, but stay tuned.